We have you here on the most interactive sports radio show anywhere in the States. So let us open today with this. 3 years ago today, something happened that upset quite a few people in the Upstate. What happened 3 years ago today? Well, it was May 19th. It was 2020. It was during the pandemic, and that was upsetting to a lot of people. And we knew that everything was going to hell in a handbasket on March 12th, right? March 12th, 2020. We were at a live show at a barbershop. And I want to interrupt this programming right now to give a special shout out to Peggy from Patewood, whom I met today and was incredibly cheery and incredibly helpful. She had a sign in her office that said, "You are the sunshine." And I looked at it and I said, "Peggy, you are the sunshine." Seriously, it was a medical thing. And she was just like a delight to work with, a delight to deal with. So Peggy, tip of the cap from me to you. I know you're listening, and I appreciate you so much, and never lose that amazing positivity that you have. So thank you, Peggy, so much. But 3 years ago today, there was something happened that offended people in the Upstate. I'm going to take your guesses as to what that might have been. And you have 2 minutes to guess, and in 2 minutes at 3:06 p.m., I'm going to tell you what that was, okay? Then I am going to defend that thing that happened 3 years ago today. What was it? 71307 on the text line. Also, the YouTube comment stream is up for you as well. The Fan Upstate on YouTube. Can I get an amen for that? But it was something that had a lot of people up in arms. It was an event that had people complaining. It was an event that had petitions being signed. It was an event that saw a lot of criticism being thrown at a particular entity. A lot of criticism being thrown at a particular entity. And it is something that people are still barking about today. 3 years later, 3 years to the day that it took place, there are still people barking about it today, upset about it today, wanting to know what they can do about it today. And you probably feel like I'm going to give you a clue that's going to give it away, and I'm not. It's up to you to figure it out. It's up to you to get it. I can lead you to water, but I can't make you drink. So what was the event 3 years ago today that pissed off a lot of people in the Upstate, and they've been trying to figure out ever since that event on May 19th, 2020, what can they do about it? Now,
did you just call our listeners horses?
I think I did. I think I did.
Well, there's a few horses' asses out there. That's for sure.
There are.
There's a few of them in here, too.
There are. Yeah, there's two. There's two that I can count, actually, Diesel. So, without further ado, your time, my friends, has expired. Diesel, do you have any idea what that event is?
Would it be the news of Clemson and Florida State?
No, it would not.
No. Would it be your first show here?
No, 3 years ago, no.
I don't know. I'm lost.
3 years ago today, Furman baseball folded. Okay? And it was something that upset and offended a lot of people, to the point that you've got people still today trying to figure out how to bring it back. I was, just reading over the last 2 hours a petition to bring back Furman baseball. That is, they're still at it. These people are still at it. Bring back Furman baseball. We want Furman baseball. I don't dispute. I'm not going to debate the fact that there are people who really feel strongly about that. All right. There's even a Twitter account that is called Bring Back Furman Baseball. 3 years ago today, Furman canceled the baseball program. It was an action that shocked fans and students alike. Help us tell Furman that we want baseball back. Sign the petition. Hashtag Save FU Baseball. Hashtag Furman Paladins. Hashtag Yeah That Greenville. Hashtag NCAA Baseball. Hashtag baseball. We are giving them right now the publicity that they want, and I'm happy to do it because it is a good cause. What I'm about to share with you, I'm not sharing with you because Furman is heard on our airwaves, okay? Like, I both praise and criticize every entity where we feel like it's warranted, all right? There's a reason why no school will ever consider this show their best friends, because every school, if you wait long enough, is going to be criticized on these airwaves. Every single one. You know, Clemson looks at us with a wary eye, but they have been so nice and they have gotten us press passes to any event we want, but they've got an eye on us, right? South Carolina doesn't give us press passes to the event, to events, because they run their athletic department like it's a tiny high school, and it's a very parochial, small-minded mindset. Furman is a beautiful campus with great people working there, and they had to make a very, very difficult decision 3 years ago today that still upsets a lot of people in the audience. You know, whenever I'm at Stack's Original Restaurant, every single time I'm there, anytime I'm there, Michael Stathakis does not let a Mark Ryan visit go by without mentioning something to me. You see all those baseball helmets up there? You see all those signatures on the wall? It's a damn shame. Does not let a single visit go by without mentioning that, and it's been 3 years now since that happened. So why did Furman do the right thing in cutting the baseball program? And here is where I'm going to say something that you're not going to like. Here's where it is, okay? If you were a Furman baseball fan, if you were upset about Furman baseball not being here any longer, you very likely did not bring enough money into the program. Sorry, it's the way it is. It's the way of the world. You wanted Furman baseball to be here. Did you show them the money? All of you listening that wanted it not to go away, did you show them the money? Did you contribute financially to the program? I didn't. Diesel, did you contribute financially to Furman baseball?
Not once.
Not once. Do I wish it was still here? Yeah, I do. Am I sad I didn't do something about it? Yeah, I am. But guess what, ladies and gentlemen? There was a time in my career at a former stop. It was actually the station group that I worked at previously with Rob Brown in the Florida Panhandle, where things got so desperate in terms of finances for that station. I actually let potential clients know, we're going to need you to keep the lights on. We're going to need you. I tried a new strategy. It was called the desperation strategy. It was called, listen, you like the show. We want to bring it to you. We're going to need you to keep the lights on. And it didn't work. People didn't want to buy into that. So I never did that again, right? Shocker. Didn't work. I never did that approach again. If there is anything you like in sports media, I ask that you support it financially. You know, when it comes to the fan Upstate, that listening to the show is free, but you help us by supporting the sponsors that you hear on these airwaves, right? Smith & James, Fine Men's Clothing, Ingalls, Mr. Sparky of the Upstate, QC Kinetics, like all of these sponsors that you hear on the Fan Upstate. Your job, if you like the show, if you like what we are and who we are, and you want us to still be around 10, 20 years from now, is to support the sponsors of the show. Like, that's pretty obvious, right? Because if a station fails to have sponsors, that station will fail to exist. And the same goes true for our station, TV stations, teams need corporate sponsorships, any of them. Okay? Like your job, and I share this with you because I'm not sure how many of you guys realize this. Like a lot of you feel like, well, if I'm listening to the show, I'm doing my job, I'm doing my parts. And the reality is, unless you have like a ratings meter, right? Unless you have a meter, like there's not really much you can do. Just listening doesn't keep the lights on for us. You supporting our sponsors does. That's not to say that we're in any danger. I have no reason why for that to believe that's the case. But I share that with you simply to say it's the case for every single sports entity that is out there. And we, as a community, you, me, Diesel, did not support Furman baseball enough to keep it around. Sucks. It's awful. I wish for anything I could go to a Furman baseball game right now, but I can't.
And Furman was a good team.
Yeah.
Furman was not a bottom of the barrel Southern Conference team.
But we can't go. And we can't go because the community, us being part of that community, did not support the baseball efforts enough. I don't recall talking about Furman baseball on these airwaves. I don't recall that, Diesel. And I regret that. You know, it's if you ask me, like, what are some of our regrets? That would be one of them. But we collectively failed, right, when it comes to keeping that program around. Here's where I'm going to defend Furman. I have in front of me right now the list of LSU's profit margins from 2018, okay, at their respective schools. This is the LSU Tigers, Louisiana State Tigers book report from 2018. And I'm told this is pretty standard in terms of what it looks like for all schools. Now, you have some exceptions, right? Women's basketball at South Carolina does real well. Women's basketball at Tennessee does real well. Gymnastics at Florida does real well. But for the most part, on average, this is what the books look like at a lot of schools. Here you go. LSU 2018, here are the books. Profit or loss. Football, $56 million profit in 2018. Men's basketball, $1.6 million profit in 2018. Baseball, $569,000 profit in 2018. Gymnastics lost $2.2 million 2018. Softball lost $2.1 million 2018. Women's basketball lost $4 million 2018. Women's track and field lost $2.5 million. Men's track and field lost $2.5 million. Men's golf lost $973,000. Women's golf lost $750,000. Women's volleyball lost $1.8 million. Women's soccer lost $1.8 million. Men's tennis lost $940,000. Beach volleyball lost $704,000. Women's tennis lost $1.1 million. Women's swimming lost $1.3 million, and men's swimming lost $1.3 million. When you hear me say that every athlete on a college campus should be walking around thanking the football players for their existence, that's what I mean. Baseball is not paying the bills. It was a sport at Furman that was incurring a lot of costs, that wasn't going to be drawing a lot of people out there, and it got cut. And Diesel, sometimes life is unfair. Sometimes life sucks. I'm sorry that you no longer have your Furman baseball team. I'm sorry that happened 3 years ago today. But you know who damn sure isn't at fault for that? Furman. You know who is at fault for that? You and me and the community. It's not Furman's fault. Never blame them again.
Well, you know, you always got to look at all the different revenue streams that a program has, and then you've got to rank them based on, you know, how much money they actually bring in. The university can subsidize a sport with student fees, or they can pull football money away or something like that. They also that would be revenue source number one, and probably the biggest one. Revenue source number two is big donations. We're talking Greenville's rich who want to throw some money at Furman baseball, and they earmark it for that purpose, and that helps cover all the uniform costs for the entire season, or it covers travel for the season or whatever it might be. Look, fans going to the game is great. But when you're talking about probably $12 tickets, $15, $20 tickets at most, with a couple hundred people showing up to each game, I don't know what Furman's average attendance was before they shut down. I'm just making a point here. That's not what's going to keep a program afloat. So the university's job also is to attract donors to a program. That's corporate donors, that's private donors. So that bears a lot of the responsibility as well. The inability to attract donors. That's not to say they didn't have some. They just didn't have enough.
Right. But Diesel, you or I could be a donor, right? You or I could.
With what money?
No, I understand. But you or I could band together and say our show is going to contribute $100 a month.
No, I'm talking
baseball.
$100 a month isn't keeping the lights on.
I understand.
I'm talking about the donors dropping $250,000, $5,000, $10,000, $50,000, $100,000, $1 million. And what didn't they just? What was the $10 million donation Furman just got to update Timmons Arena?
Sure,
that's fantastic. That's the kind of donors that they need. That's the kind of donors that baseball was not getting.
100%, 100%. But they largely, every entity had to make difficult decisions. Clemson cut track and field. Clemson brought back track and field. Everyone had to panic. But it showed you just how razor thin the margin is of all of our survivals.
Yeah.
Diesel, Clemson's track and field temporarily didn't make it. Furman baseball permanently didn't make it. We're still here.
Upstate soccer didn't make it. Men's soccer was cut.
You know what happened to our funding, ladies and gentlemen? You know what happened to our advertising during the pandemic? Dropped 40% across the whole building, across the whole company. Advertising dropped 40%.
Surprised more radio stations didn't go away.
Right. When the pandemic began, we got brought into a room and we were told, do your best work. All options are on the table. That's all we can tell you right now. And every single day, when hell was breaking loose around us, when ambulances were going up and down the road on Lawrence Road, we tried to bring you our best work because we wanted to still be here. And by golly, we survived. You survived. We survived. And we're thrilled to still be here, man. Thrilled to still be here. 71307 on the text line is where you can get to us. Hard decisions sometimes have to be made in life and in sports. Coming up next, what goes into your rooting interest? I'll explain when Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel continues right after this. We are the Fan Upstate. It's Offsides, Mark, Ryan, and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 p.m. today. Diesel's last before vacation next week. Bet that feels good, huh?
Man, I made a vow to myself because like the last couple of vacations that I've taken, there's always a project that needs to get done. And I ended up burning my whole vacation working on a project. It is my vow this time. I am not doing any projects. I am not checking off any honey-do lists. I am doing what I want to do for a week straight, which is most likely going to be sit on the couch and do nothing.
Yeah, and so we all remember the famous line from Office Space, right? Where the main character is asked, what would you do with $1 million if you won $1 million? And he says,
2 chicks at the same time.
Well, that's the country guy said that, right? And he says, turns it around and he goes, what would you do with $1 million? He said, I would do absolutely nothing. And it would be everything I ever thought it could be. So the question is, what is doing absolutely nothing to you, Diesel? And what is doing absolutely nothing to you guys in the Upstate? What does that look like? Because it sounds great, doesn't it?
Man, you don't need $1 million to do nothing. My cousin's broke. Don't do jack.
Don't do bleep.
Yeah.
That was the rest of the conversation.
Yeah.
Nothing for me, Diesel, looks like sitting outside with a cider, because I can't do regular beer, gluten-free, sitting outside with a cider, making s'mores outside, video games, sports.
You're that guy
Netflix.
at 2 p.m. starting a campfire so you can make s'mores.
We got like a little kit, you know. It's kind of like
cute.
That. Yeah, it is cute.
That's
cute.
adorable.
It was a gift for Angela, you know, for Christmas.
Is that the kit that came with sticks and marshmallows and everything?
Oh, it doesn't have marshmallows. You got to provide those, but it is like a little yay big kit. So yeah, making s'mores outside with a cider.
S'more what?
What's that?
S'more what?
You know what I'm talking about. We got, Netflix movies, a beach day, maybe like video games, sports, movies. That's what nothing looks like to me. What is your nothing?
My nothing is sitting on the couch, just vegging out, watching everything that's been sitting on my Netflix and my Hulu list for months because I can't watch movies with Ashley. I can't do it. First of all, she won't watch a movie if she doesn't know what it's about before she starts it, which drives me nuts. And like, that's the whole point of watching the movie is to discover it all in real time together in a collective experience. Also, she can't go 5 minutes without saying, pause it. Let me talk about something unrelated to the movie. Drives me insane. So I've developed a skill, Mark, of being able to tune her out and just stare right at the TV.
That is a skill. And
it is
not easy.
It is. It drives me nuts. So like a lot of times what I'll do is I'll put the remote on the other side of the room so that I can't pause it.
This sounds like a can we stop venting session about our partners? Because what I'm going to say to you, Diesel, is a show Angela and I will get to watch together. So here's the usual layout of the day, right? I get home 7:15, 7:30 from the show. Jackson goes to bed at 9:30. So we have like 2.5 hours with Jackson before he goes to bed. That includes mom finishing up making dinner, talking to Jackson, spending time with the family. We eat dinner. Jackson usually wants to watch something together with us. Last night we watched Lion King, the one from 2019, where they actually use like real looking animals. It's all CGI, but the animals look real as opposed to being a cartoon.
You're telling me that Warthog doesn't actually speak?
Seth Rogen, man. My friend Seth Rogen doesn't actually speak. So then Jackson goes to bed, and I've been waiting to watch something with Angela. And 10 minutes into the show going on, she's asleep, Diesel. Every single time.
Well, hey, it means you get to watch the show uninterrupted.
And then she's like, you watched it without me? You watched it without me? You can't watch that without me. Well, you fell asleep.
Mark, read what's on the screen right now and who it's from.
That movie description about Ash made me drive off the road laughing.
Her brother
from Nick.
Her brother's listening to the show.
Oh, Nick, what's good, buddy? What's good, man? Oh, man. But Nick knows it's right.
Did she do it as a kid, too?
Nick knows it's true.
Yeah. Can't get 5 minutes into the movie. Hey, let's talk about this. Hey, let's talk about that. Explain this. What's going to happen next? Watch the damn movie.
Nick at Night is so much better than Ashley with a movie. I think we can agree on that, right? So anyway, I hope you have a great week of nothingness. Ladies and gentlemen,
Probably going to go play a couple rounds of golf, too.
There you go. There you go. What does your week of nothingness look like if you were going to do a week of nothing? I want to talk to you guys about this. So if you are watching a game that features the Gamecocks and you're a Gamecock fan, I know who you're rooting for and I know why you're rooting for them. One thing that is very unique about this area is you guys are so obsessed with the enemy that, you can see a video inside a cockaboose in Colombia and there's orange on the television. Why? Because they're watching a Clemson football game. I have never seen that anywhere else that I've ever lived. And, you go to a Clemson game, you walk by all the tailgating tents. These people have generators hooked up to their truck, which allows them to watch the Gamecocks when they're tailgating at a Clemson game. This is something I've never seen anywhere else that I've been. I know that you love to root for your team and against your hated rival, and that makes this rivalry one of the most hate-filled, contempt-filled rivalries in all of college football, and that makes it outstanding. But when you're watching a game where there isn't a clear rooting interest, what factors come into play that make the choice for you? Okay, like what factors jump off the page to you that make that decision clear and obvious for you? I was thinking about this last night because I'm watching the Denver Nuggets against the LA Lakers. And as the series is going on, and again, this is not an NBA topic per se, but I was thinking about like what factors are important to you. And I was like, man, like I'm surprised at how strong my rooting interest is for Denver and how much I'm rooting against the Lakers. By the way, I've had this guy chiming in every single day that there's a Denver Lakers game. And he's like, Lakers in 6, Mark, Lakers in 6. Sir, how you like me now? Denver up 2-0. But I was thinking about this, and it's like I'm rooting for Denver because they've been crapped on. Nobody gave them a chance. They were the number 1 seed since December 20th. Everybody picked Golden State. Everybody picked Phoenix. Some picked the Lakers. Nobody picked Denver. And they were the number 1 freaking seed. It was right there in front of you, and nobody picked them. And I kind of feel like I like them giving the bird to the rest of the establishment who shunned them. I'm rooting for Denver because their stars, Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray, are likable, good people. They work hard. I'm rooting for Denver because the Denver Nuggets have never been to the NBA Finals. They've never even been to the Finals, Diesel. They've never been to the championship series. They've never been there. Why am I rooting against LA? There have been times in his career where I've rooted for LeBron, times in his career where I've rooted against LeBron. And I want to say this. It's like it annoyed me. You remember when Peyton Manning won the Super Bowl with the Denver Broncos? It annoyed me because he was getting all this credit for winning his second Super Bowl, and he sucked at that point. He couldn't throw the ball 15 yards downfield anymore. He sucked. And so it's like, oh, Peyton Manning, now even with his brother, 2 Super Bowls. It was like, yeah, they have the number 1 defense in the league, and they have an offense that can't pass. This Lakers roster is awesome. Austin Reeves, Lonnie Walker, D'Angelo Russell, Rui Hachimura, Anthony Davis, Dennis Schroeder. The roster is awesome. And you know as well as I do, if LeBron wins the championship, it's going to be LeBron won another one. LeBron, he was awful last night. Did you guys watch that? Couldn't jump, couldn't move, sucking wind. The mile high in Denver was getting him worse than any other player. So when I am left to try to figure out what I am rooting for or who I am rooting for, it almost always comes down to, Diesel, what I feel like is fair, right, and just. Denver is being dissed by everybody, being ignored by everybody, and they're damn good. I don't want LeBron to get a ton of credit when he's got this amazing team around him of ballers. When you sit down to watch a game, what determines your rooting interest?
I usually like to I like to root for the underdog a lot of the time. I like to root for the upset, especially, when it comes to football, college football. I almost always root for the underdog to win because I want chaos. I want those top teams, especially early in the season, those top 10 teams who don't really deserve it. They're just there because sports writers have convinced themselves that this is going to be a great team. I want those teams to lose early. I want them to get embarrassed. And I want to watch them have to claw back into the conversation the way every other program in the country has to.
And an interesting take. An interesting take. What goes into your rooting interest, ladies and gentlemen? Like, what goes into what makes you root for a team when you don't have an obvious rooting interest one way or another? 71307 on the text line is where you can get to us. You can also give us a ring at 844 fan phone. That's 844 FANFONE. That's 844 326 3663. We are mourning today the loss of one of the all-time greats. We will tackle that when Offsides continues right after this here on the most interactive sports radio show anywhere. It's Offsides, Mark, Ryan, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. It's Offsides, Mark, Ryan, and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate. Opening today, asking you how you determine your rooting interest when watching sports and commemorating 3 years from the day that we said goodbye to Furman baseball and understanding why Furman University should never be blamed for that, but rather the finger of blame should be pointed at those we see in the mirror every single day. We had one particular listener that was very, very eager for us to see something that we did. And that is that Jim Brown has passed away today. It is a very, very sad look. It's a very sad situation. You know, I wish that I had a chance to know Jim Brown better than I did. He was not a guy that you could get to come on the show. If he would come on the show, I would have had him on the show. Right. But he was not a guy that was available. He died at the age of 87 years old, just turned 87 years old, by the way. And he is regarded by many. I've got two different NFL lists in front of me here, and he's number one in both of them. And I would say the following. Okay. Jim Brown was before my time. Okay, ran for the Cleveland Browns between 1957 and 1965. We have listeners that grew up watching Jim Brown play. And I'm going to completely step aside, and we'll take your texts, we'll take your calls about that experience, because outside of grainy black and white video, I have nothing to draw upon. What I can tell you about where I would rank Jim Brown is based on statistics that I see, is based on highlights that I've seen, but I saw none of that live. I saw none of that in real time. I think Shaquille O'Neal is the most dominant. Shaquille O'Neal and Wilt Chamberlain are the two most dominant basketball players that have ever played in terms of dominating their peers, dominating their competition, dominating their era. Jim Brown was the most dominant running back of all time in the National Football League. The guy averaged 5.2 yards a carry in an era where they couldn't pass, or at least couldn't pass well. That said, to me, he would not be my GOAT, my all-time GOAT running back. That would be Barry Sanders. You heard me say when we did our starting fives in the NBA that Hakeem Olajuwon would be my starting center. What no Wilt Chamberlain? What no Kareem Abdul-Jabbar? What no Shaquille O'Neal? Well, I saw Hakeem versus Shaquille, and he dominated him, right? And I because I know the skill level of Hakeem, I said to you guys, you wouldn't like the way it looked if Hakeem Olajuwon went against your favorite center, went against Bill Russell. You wouldn't like the way that looked if you're a Bill Russell guy. I feel the same way in this scenario. I've got to have Jim Brown number two because I understand the level of dominance that he had. But Barry Sanders was a human joystick. And the highlights that Barry Sanders produced are highlights only he could ever do. The stop-start without blowing out your Achilles or blowing out your ACL. The shift from one side to another. The absolute tank build that Barry Sanders had. And on the list that I'm looking at, Gil Brandt has him number 7. And I think Gil Brandt is high. On another list I'm looking at from Athlon Sports, Barry Sanders is number 2. Jim Brown is number 1. Jim Brown is number 1 on both lists that I'm looking at. I would have him number 2, and I'm not shooting any disrespect his way. Sometimes, folks, it's a challenge to discuss things like somebody passing, right? Because it sucks. It's hard. I don't do well with death. I never have. I never will. I don't understand it. We don't like it. You guys are actually Americans, if you can believe it. Americans' number 1 fear is public speaking. Number 2 is death. So you guys are more afraid of speaking publicly than dying, even. To me, death has always been my number one fear. It's terrified me. And honestly, Diesel, other than saying this is awful, this is sad, let's pay homage to Jim Brown, I don't know how really to talk about death all that much.
Yeah. The only experience I have with Jim Brown, and this is minute, is from watching that Ernie Davis movie that came out 10 years ago or so, in which, Jim Brown is featured in it, because at that time, Jim Brown was just a few years into the NFL. And allegedly, as portrayed by the movie, Ernie Davis made contact with Jim to kind of, get advice and mentorship. That's basically all I know about Jim Brown. And I know that I've seen him in a couple of movies here and there. I know I've seen him on TV a time or two. But it seems like Jim Brown, once he got out of playing, he kind of disappeared.
He was involved in civil rights. He was an activist, but over the last few years, he was hard to find. And, you couldn't get him on the show. There's no beef with that, folks. You don't have to come on a radio show. But he didn't do things like radio shows. He didn't do a lot of speaking publicly. He was a very opinionated guy who would set the record straight on a lot of things. I'd have Barry Sanders first. I'd have Jim Brown second. Walter Payton would be up there for me. I think those guys were more skilled than Emmitt Smith was. You might expect me to say Emmitt Smith, given that I'm a Gator and he's a Gator. But to me, Walter Payton, Barry Sanders, Jim Brown are easily ahead of Emmitt Smith. Emmitt Smith leads in yards, but I'm talking about ability, man. LaDainian Tomlinson, Marshall Faulk, Adrian Peterson, Eric Dickerson, Earl Campbell. These guys, to me, had more talent. They all were physical specimens, more so than Emmitt Smith was, who was a very good runner with very good vision behind an elite offensive line. That's where he was. But anyway, guys, we open it up to you. Share your Jim Brown memories with us. I open it up to you. What are your memories? Some of you listening right now have seen Jim Brown play. Can you call in and talk to us about it? 844-326-3663 is the number to get into us on the show, because this was not a player. This was a player before my time. If a player did his thing before the mid-'80s, it was before my time. It was before Diesel's time. Me, probably mid-'80s. Diesel, probably mid-'90s, right? Before my time, before Diesel's time. Let's see here. Texter says, Mark, you know that Wilt said he'd only lost to one man in arm wrestling in his life. It was Jim Brown. Said he couldn't beat him. Think about the amount of strength that took to give the torque that Wilt had because of the length of his arm. Jim Brown could not beat Jim Brown in arm wrestling. Spur Daddy says, my top 5 running backs of all time, counting down from 5 to 1. Number 5, Earl Campbell. 4, Emmitt Smith. 3, Jim Brown. 2, Walter Payton. And 1, Barry Sanders. The game of football lost an all-time GOAT today. And given the very private nature of Jim Brown, you shouldn't be surprised that we didn't hear about this until it already happened. 87 years old. Am I right for saying this? I feel like if you hit 80 and you were loved, you were beloved, you made a difference. If you make it to 80 years old and you made a difference, you won the game of life, right? You won the game of life. Jim Brown owned the game of life and won the game of life. And I always feel that, to anybody who passes away in their 80s, I lost my grandmother. She was 83. I say to that person, I'm sorry for your loss. Congratulations to grandma on winning the game of life. Because really, folks, that's all you can ask for, right? You guys know I hate death. I study death. Here's what I found. You either die in your 50s or you live your full lifespan. That's what I found. 50s is the danger decade. On Wednesday next week, we're going to be broadcasting live at Ingalls Markets in Inman. And I'd love to see you guys out there. It's going to be my birthday. It's going to be number 46 for me. I like that in the sense that it's my first birthday as a married man. I'm curious to see what that's about. I don't like that in the sense that I'm going to be 4 years away from the danger decade. I've studied obituaries, folks. People either die in their 50s or they live their full lifespan. Average woman lives to 77. Average man lives to 73. So you either pass away in your 50s or you live your full lifespan. And sure, there are exceptions. Angela's dad just passed away at 61, right? But it's like I kept seeing that over and over and over again. And I'm like, man, I got to set myself up not to pass away in my 50s. What can I do not to pass away in my 50s, right? It's what I'm focused on. You make it to 87, Jim Brown, brother, you have won the game of life. And you're on everyone's medal stand as to the best running back who has ever played the game. Spur Daddy says Barry Sanders, if he would have run behind that Cowboys line, he'd have over 2,500 yards every single season. Coming up next on the show, we will talk college football with our guy, Brent Beard. Heisman Trophy voter, First Coast News in Jacksonville. Brent Beard is coming your way next, right here on the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Mark Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. Okay, Diesel, I'm sending you Brent's notes here. The Fan Upstate rolling on until 7 p.m. today. Truly do appreciate you making us part of your afternoon. Also, right now on YouTube. What's up to our friends on YouTube this afternoon? Great to see you. If you would be so kind, subscribe to us on YouTube. Just look up the Fan Upstate on your YouTube account and just click that blue subscribe button. We would appreciate it greatly. Joining us as he always does at this time, Heisman Trophy voter, First Coast News in Jacksonville. Invite you to follow one of our longtime show contributors and friends on Twitter at Brent, Beard is how you spell Brent Beard. He joins us right now. Brent, we had in the last hour the sad news of Jim Brown passing away. And for me, Brent, I understand his place in history. I regret seriously the fact that I never got a chance to see him play. And somebody said to us, and I got to have an old joke in here somewhere. We had a listener say, Brent is old enough to have seen Jim Brown play. And I laughed at first when I saw that, Brent, but then I said to myself, I want to know from Brent Beard what it was like to watch Jim Brown. I could ask my dad this, Brent. I could ask you this. He played for my birth city, Syracuse University. And I have Barry Sanders #1 on the all-time running back list because he could do things that no one else could do. But I imagine people feel the same way about Jim Brown. From all I've been told, the most physically dominant player ever. What was your experience, Brent, watching Jim Brown?
Well, he was just I don't want to say that he was a man running against boys at times, but when he was playing, Mark Diesel, you got a little bit of that from him. I mean, he was just so much more advanced in some ways than some of the other players. Certainly a solid college career, along with being in the NFL. I mean, my goodness, that stat that came out a few minutes ago that he averaged 104 yards rushing per game, and still the most in NFL history by nearly 5 yards. I mean, that's unbelievable, isn't it? I mean, I obviously remember Emmitt Smith and what he did at Florida and what he did in the NFL. But I do hope, guys, that people who are not familiar with Jim Brown will Google him and just watch what he was capable of doing. I'm not, and I wonder if he ever still got the credit that he deserved, but I mean, it was just appointment television when he was on. We probably didn't even realize it sometimes back then, but it was special to watch him play.
Brent Beard, host on First Coast News, and sounds like some breaking news coming in there, Brent. Jim's Syracuse Orange have fallen on hard times over the last couple of decades. Why is there's some big news obviously that's been breaking this week about the ACC and meetings going on among the Magnificent Seven. So why is or why isn't 8 or 9 of the biggest brands in the ACC breaking off, leaving the weaker teams behind to form their own conference a viable option?
Well, if the grant of rights was not staring in front of them and preventing a lot of this, I think it probably would either have happened, and I still think there comes a time where that someone takes the opportunity and does it. Now, again, you've got this exit fee of $120 million, and then the other bit of this that is a problem is okay, let's just pretend for a minute Clemson went to the SEC. Well, that's fine and dandy, hoorah, everybody would enjoy that if they did. But the reality is, whatever money that Clemson made between now and 2036 would stay with the ACC. So that's another bit of this. But they're really tired of seeing the gap in revenue between the SEC, the Big Ten, and the ACC. I'm not at all surprised that 7 of these teams at least went looking around and examining this contract to see if they can get out of it.
Brent Beard joining us here on Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate. Brent, there is an existential crisis right now for the Pac-12. The new commissioner, aggressive guy, I'm told, of the Big 12, is coming strongly after Colorado, Washington, Oregon, Arizona State. If he lands them, I'm not sure why the Pac-12 would exist any longer.
Yeah.
So if you were to predict, Brent, if we look into our crystal ball, does the Pac-12 survive this? Do these guys go over to the Big 12? Does the Big 12 become number 3? Does the Pac-12 cease to exist in any respectable form? What do you think?
It would come close, wouldn't it, Mark? I mean, obviously still the Big Ten, and let's look at this too. The Big Ten, I think, still at some point has some interest in Oregon and Washington. If that was to happen after they lost UCLA and USC, that would certainly further weaken the conference. It's going to be really tough for them to survive, and they don't have their own grant of rights done yet. I think streaming is going to be a lot bigger deal for them, I understand, than it is for some of the other conferences. But I can understand when people say that they may only have another few years to exist and what happens to these teams. So, and again, our mantra is expansion is never dead, it's just dormant.
Brent, what programs do you expect to be good this year, but also need to look over impressive to gain any kind of national attention or respect?
I'm going to throw some different ones in here. One, I could say, I know they're predicting the top 10, but Texas is in a situation of where they need to do that and look much better than people think they might. I think Ole Miss could be in there, but Ole Miss is not going to have very good defense. That's going to be a real problem for them again. And speaking of defenses, North Carolina needs to have a year to where they look much better than they have on defense. And they've got 8 guys coming back as starters, so that hopefully will happen. What about Wisconsin after a 7-6 and 4-5 last year? Luke Fickell in there and new blood and where they might go. I think those are a few teams off the top, Diesel, that need to ramp it up and certainly do a lot better than a 7-6 this year.
Brent Beard joining us on the show. Brent, I'm going to ask for you and our audience's patience as I get through these 14 win total numbers that DraftKings has put out for the SEC. But I want to ask you, is there any team here that the Vegas guys are missing the boat on from an over-under win total perspective? Here we go. Georgia, 11.5. Alabama, 10.5. Tennessee, 9.5. LSU, 9.5. Ole Miss, 7.5. Arkansas, 7.5. A&M, 7.5. South Carolina, 6.5. Kentucky, 6.5. Missouri, 6.5. Mississippi State, 6.5. Auburn, 6.5. Florida, 5.5. And Vanderbilt, 3.5.
Florida, I think, will be better than 5.5. Matter of fact, we're talking about that tonight on television. on First Coast News. Now, what is better? Is 6 better, 7 better? Yeah, probably. Vanderbilt, as I mentioned before, and I've got a friend in media who's done some numbers. And as far as Vanderbilt was concerned, hopefully folks are gripping the steering wheel tightly. But I've had some media friends who have said, when you look at Vanderbilt's schedule, Vanderbilt can actually start 6-0. That's a mouthful right there, is it not?
It really is, man. It really is.
Mark's jaw dropped open when you said that.
Yeah, it did. Because look, Wake Forest doesn't have Sam Hartman anymore.
Right.
The other non-conference opponents, I think Hawaii is one of them. Nobody is another one. Like Wake Forest, like they got a shot to go 4-0 in the non-conference. They could start. They could start that way. You're right. You're 100% right. You're 100% right, Brent. So there you go.
Brent, what I don't know how much traveling you get to do to go to new stadiums and over your entire career of doing this. I'm sure you've been to quite a few, but recently, Brent, what's the most surprisingly good atmosphere at a stadium that you didn't expect to have a really great atmosphere?
I'll tell you where, and it's been a little while, and I'm not saying this because of where you are, but I remember when I first went to South Carolina, people said, you're going to really be surprised by how rabid the atmosphere is. You'll love the caboose. You'll love that area, and it's not a bad drive from here, and it's not under 5 hours. So I know how. I know how much I enjoyed that, and hope to get back soon. And I tell you a place, and this is a lifetime ago, but I was in school in Fort Worth, Texas, and this is frankly since TCU really got on the map the way they have as of late. But that was a really good experience. I thought it was. It was very small. It was what you kind of thought it would be in Fort Worth. But the atmosphere, frankly, I thought was tremendous. So, and by the way, if people have not heard, one of the big stories down here, speaking of stadiums, is renovating the stadium here in Jacksonville to extend the roof on it, for one thing, and probably take 2 years to do it. And so that's led more than you can imagine share of debate about what happens to where the Jaguars play and where does Georgia, Florida, and Georgia go for 2 years. So talking stadiums has been one of the key topics down here over the last few days.
Brent Beard joining us here on the show. Brent, we did our SEC predictions yesterday on the show, wins and losses. And I said, this stat will show you how much of an SEC homer I am. I had the league, Brent, going 53-3 in the non-conference schedule. Okay. Kansas State was 1 loss. Clemson was 1 loss. Utah was a loss for Florida. I think Missouri plays Kansas State. South Carolina plays Clemson. So I said 53-3. So I need you, Brent, to help me understand the would-be greatness of Caleb Williams. I was looking at a list today, best players in college football. He was number 1. And I had a skeptical eye because a couple of years ago, the same list said Spencer Rattler was number 1, right? And so, when the player doesn't come from the SEC, and seemingly especially when the player comes from the West Coast, I kind of look at it, Brent, with a little bit of a skeptical eye. I'm not saying he's not good, but what kind of defense is he facing? What can you tell me? What can you tell me about Caleb Williams and all the hype surrounding him?
Well, obviously as a Heisman voter, we've got our eyes on him and what he can do. He can pretty well make all the throws. I think if he had to break away and get a first down on 3rd and 3, he could probably even do that. I think he's pretty accurate, even though every quarterback needs to be able to do so. But I mean, still, I mean, to your point, I mean, his defense is one that's awful, and it was last year. I mean, we saw that against Utah in the championship game where Utah just brutalized USC, and that's my main concern for Williams. I think from a quarterback standpoint, there's not much that he can't do, but the two things are going to be is, can they stop anybody, and are they going to be able to protect him throughout the year the way they need to?
Brent, back to a little bit of not only conference expansion, but FBS expansion. That's still running rampant at this point. I mean, it's been almost a decade since App State and Georgia Southern moved up, but since then, James Madison has moved up. Jacksonville State down in Alabama has moved up. A couple of Texas schools are moving up. There were conversations at one point about a moratorium that would stop FCS schools from moving up into FBS. Is there anything going on in that conversation? Because it seems as if there's conversations about, you know, some of these other G5s following the lead of some Power Fives and going to bigger and bigger and bigger conferences. And we know Conference USA is not going to go away. They had the opportunity to, but pulled more FCS schools up. Yeah. Is there any conversation still happening about trying to bar FCS schools from moving up into FBS?
No, I haven't heard that as of late. I mean, obviously, expansion is still a hot topic. And again, geography has nothing to do with it at all. But no, I think at this point that, I mean, the reality is we've got a new NCAA president. We've got a entity like the NCAA that's trying to recreate itself, trying to, I think, have a bigger bite, shall we say, from the enforcement end of it, and they're just kind of getting themselves together. So I think that's a lot of that. I mean, because of the shape that the NCAA is in right now, you just haven't heard much else with that. And the other, you know, the commissioners have said nothing about it at this point. And of course, a lot of people would point fingers at them if they did, saying, well, you're still expanding when maybe some of these other folks either can or won't. So, but I mean, that certainly bears watching over the next few months and years to see where that goes.
Brent Beard joining us here on Offsides. Mark, Ron, and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate. Brent, I'm looking at the final college football playoff rankings from a year ago, right before the CFP was played. And what I have here in front of me is 1, 2, 3, 4 teams in the top 12 that would have 0 or 1 loss. I would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams with 2 losses. Okay. And I had 2 teams with 3 losses. The 2 3-loss teams, number 8, Utah, number 9, Kansas State, won their conference with 3 losses. If you're thinking about the college football playoff and the expansion of the college football playoff from like a Gamecocks or a Florida Gators perspective, are you telling yourself pretty much you got to go 10-2, Brent? Because I don't see a 3-loss team ever winning the ACC. And those are the only exceptions in terms of who would have gotten in to an expanded CFP. What do you think? Yeah,
I can't really argue with that either. Frankly, I guess Florida State came to mind. They were 10-3, 5-3 last year, and how they rocketed up the standings and in everybody's mind toward the end. Now, what's going to be very interesting is, to your point, when we really do get the expanded playoffs going, could we get a proverbial really hot team, meaning that you, for whatever reason, the wheels come off and you lose your first 3 in a row or 3 out of 4 or something like that, and then you run the table, how something like that would be looked at, that would be fascinating too. But yeah, no more. I can't disagree with that very much. You've either 0, 1, or 2 is more the magic numbers right now than 3.
Yeah, it's interesting. You look at these standings, and Washington was 12, but would
Yeah.
not have made it because Tulane would have been the highest ranked group of 5 conference champion. So Washington at 12 would have gotten knocked out, and then Florida State was number 13. So you would have a couple, it would be rare for a 2-loss Power 5 to be left out. Washington would be the only one that was left out of that group last year. So basically, you're in a Power 5 conference, you got to go 10-2, or you could have 3 losses, but you got to win the league, and that seems to be the way it's going to go when this thing expands. My good friend Brent Beard, I always invite you, my friend, to check out. I'll be on CBS Sports Radio tomorrow, 5 p.m.
Wonderful.
to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. In our next segment, Brent, we are going to have a segment where listen to all this breaking news going on right now, Brent, in the background. Listen to all this. It's incredible.
Yeah,
incredible.
I need to silence my phones when I do this.
It's all good. It's all good, buddy. We're doing a segment to improve the upstate of South Carolina. Yes.
Did you notice he said phones? We got the Adam Schefter of North Florida over here with multiple phones going off.
He's getting tips on every single text line, folks.
Well, I think what it actually is, it's people calling me or texting me about how great your show is.
We know that's a
what
lot.
I'm seeing more than anything else. Okay,
Yeah.
and it may be the ice cream truck trying to that they're stopped at the end of the driveway wanting to get my order.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, Brent, we are always let you know when we have a national show tomorrow, CBS Sports Radio, 5 to 10 p.m. But when we come back, we're doing a segment with our audience to improve the upstate. What's one idea they have to improve the upstate? And I'll let you know, Brent, the other local show that we have here is very hard on your city of Jacksonville. He calls Jacksonville the armpit of the country. And I'm just curious, Brent, how do you feel about Jacksonville? Like I think he said it was like 4 or 5 different little towns trying to be Jacksonville, and he didn't like it. So I'm just curious, Brent, do you have similar criticisms about where you live, or do you enjoy it there?
Well, I mean, the thing about Jacksonville that's changed is just the fact of how much it's growing. I mean, on every corner there's a new apartment complex. The fire chief here on the local news said just a few months ago that there were like 125 people a day moving into the Jacksonville area. So, but I mean, the reality is they're developing new concert venues near the football stadium. They're renovating, obviously, the stadium soon, and they've already done that in some areas. There are times that it can be a really small town, but I'll say this: from when I got here in 1985 to where it is now, I mean, pretty much everything. We all complain about the traffic. We all complain about the crime and things of that nature when you're in a bigger city. But I've come over the years to appreciate being here. Now, what we do need desperately is, because of the traffic, is we need some mass transit options that we don't have, and we should have done that years ago. We just elected a new mayor. I'll be interested to see where that goes. So I get the question in a lot of ways, and I mean, we've got the Jumbo Shrimp. We've got a hockey team. They're minor league teams, but here at the same time, I mean, sports in this area through high school and in college is good too. So I'd have a differing opinion from the other one that you gave me.
There you go. I'm a big Florida fan myself, personally speaking, and Jacksonville is on the come. They're on the ups, man. So good catching up with you, buddy. We truly appreciate you, bud. Have a great weekend, okay?
Y'all too, guys. Thank you.
All right, take care. Up next on the show, your chance to improve the upstate. All right. Now, here is what Diesel and I are going to do. We're going to vote on which idea that comes in is the best. And for the best idea that comes in, I will personally email your local leaders with your idea to improve the upstate. Does that sound like a fair plan? That's next here on Offsides. We are the Fan Upstate. It's Offsides, Mark, Ryan, and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate. Fantastic to have you guys with us. Happy Friday, one and all. Sure do appreciate you making us part of your day. So, Texter says, all males on my dad's side die by the age of 65. Bro, that sucks. Be the one to change the genes, man. Be the one. One exception made it to 67, so I got that going for me.
The question is, Texter, what are you doing to try to counteract that?
Yeah, there are doctors, Diesel, who believe that 25% of what happens to you is genetics. 75% is your environment and life choices that you make, right?
Yeah.
Like you can do a lot to overcome faulty genetics. Texter says, if I'm the Pac-12, I'm buying the entire Mountain West Conference, and creating the first super conference. I mean, like you would think more is better, but then you're looking at your super conference and you've got Hawaii and San Jose State in there. And does that really move the needle for anybody? You know, Diesel, used to be that the Mountain West Conference was like far and away the first anyone would choose, you know, in terms of in terms of the group of five, right? The smaller conferences. And I don't know what's happened to them. They're just what's happened to them is the same thing that's happened to the rest of college football. The best football is played in the South.
Yeah, what's also happened to them is Boise State cooled off. Now, Boise State is still a good football program. Doesn't change anything, but they were getting all the headlines when they were beating Oklahoma, the Statue of Liberty play. I mean, Boise State were the original group of five darlings, and they kind of blazed that trail of that G5 that's punching well above their weight class that nobody wanted to play because every time you played them, you get beat.
That's what happens, man. So anyway, I want to bring you guys into our next topic. All right. Your ideas to improve the Upstate. Now, I'm going to sweeten the pot for you a little bit here. Okay. I happen to have the email addresses for quite a few of our local elected leaders. Okay, quite a few of them here. We've got a good relationship with them. They understand the gist of our show, and they know who we are and what we do, and I know that they listen often. I know that they're interested in hearing what we have to say today, right? And so what Diesel and I are going to do, okay, on the show right now, are we're gonna ask for your ideas to improve the Upstate, to improve life in the Upstate, to improve something in the Upstate. When we decide which idea that comes in is best, that idea I will personally email our county and local leaders about. I will email them your idea. Now, you can be like Diesel and I and think of a lazy river through Greenville and
Still think it's a great idea.
It's a fantastic idea.
Even if you have to dig a new river. Everybody's like, oh, the Reedy's too dirty. The Reedy's too dirty. The Reedy's too dirty. Well, okay then, dig a new one right next to the Reedy.
Right. And we love the idea. But if your idea to improve life in the Upstate, we open the floor to you right now at 844-326-3663. That's 844-FANFONE is the number. Text line is there for you at 71307. We will even allow comments to come in on the YouTube channel at the Fan Upstate on YouTube. We got quite a few comments coming in today. DB says, I don't want to guess what that stands for, DB, but you seem like a nice enough guy.
It's Dan B.
Dan B. There you go. He says, revisit that sports complex soccer stadium. Make it happen, GSP. Sorry about that, Dan B. Sorry about that.
Well, it's being built right now. And there were rumors that the soccer stadium for the Triumph could be back on, and that in that location. So who knows?
That would be incredible. 71307 is the text line, 844-326-3663. I've got 4 for you here, okay? I've got 4 to share with you here on the show, okay? Mad Craft says, let's see here. Someone like BMW could hold something like that in Greenville or Spartanburg, and it would be cool. In the 2000s, a paper mill in Georgetown held an opening season baseball tournament for the top 8 teams in the state. That would make life in the Upstate better, so that we have some ideas coming in already fast and furious on the YouTube page. Text line, you guys are slacking. Let's go. 71307 on the text line. The phone line is buzzing. Let's go to Guy in Greenville, who leads us off here on the show. Guy, what's good, buddy? What is your idea to improve life in the Upstate?
If one of the things they could do is take those cement barriers off McDaniel Road so that the cyclists don't get killed one way or another. They have a choice of either getting killed by the cars or getting killed by the cement.
Or they could not cycle there.
Where is McDaniel Road, Guy?
Right off Augusta Street, goes down to the park. It's
Okay.
a cycling mecca, if done correctly. The other thing is to make Woodruff Road 12 lanes.
Well, Guy, maybe you know this, maybe you thought about this already, but to make Woodruff Road 12 lanes, you have to plow all the businesses that are currently there. And maybe that's what you actually
Now
want.
you're understanding because they did the businesses before they did the road.
That's a
He's
problem.
got a point.
No, that's a problem. Diesel, there is a long stretch of Woodruff Road where it does seem like there's room to widen it.
Oh, yeah.
There does. It seems like that room is there. and
We could spend an entire show on the Upstate's lax infrastructure and planning. It is awful. Whoever has been in charge of infrastructure and planning for Greenville County for the last 40 years has royally effed this up. Royally effed this up. And man, I tweet at Knox White probably once a week telling him something about Greenville sucks, Knox. You got to fix this. Knox never responds. Not once.
It's a hard knocks life for you, Diesel. You got to work on fixing that. Texter says, need to repave our roads and stop allowing new subdivisions to be built on already overcrowded roads unless they widen them. That's what I'm talking about, JT and Greer.
Here's my idea for this, Mark, and I think it fixes a lot of problems all at once.
Now, if we can, Diesel, we call that a tease, right? I've got my ideas. You
Okay.
got your ideas. Let's share our ideas with you. We will do that
Okay.
right after this here on the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Mark, Ryan, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. The Fan Upstate. Fantastic to have you guys with us, taking your ideas to improve life in the Upstate. What are yours? Texter says, paving the road, cease allowing new subdivisions to be built on already overcrowded areas. Texter says, Mark, I think there could be an amusement park in the northern part of Greenville County in the mountainous area. Also would love to see a football stadium built. There's plenty of areas by like Table Rock State Park and that could house an amusement park here. Tons of areas here. Somewhere above 85 in Greenville County, that could draw an XFL or USFL franchise if they built a football stadium. I really believe that this would be a real draw. They would sell it out. So we've got football stadium, repaving the roads, halting unnecessary construction, adding width to Woodruff Road. Diesel has been hanging patiently on his idea. Diesel, what do you got?
I want a true loop, an interstate loop that surrounds Greenville, which will bring everything that are the major areas of Greenville inside of a loop. It will connect everything. It'll give people a route around I-85 right through the heart of Greenville. And it'll basically, I'm looking at a map right now. It'll basically loop from around Duncan, which is around the halfway point between Greenville and Spartanburg, northwest up to Marietta, down around to Pickens, Liberty, Williamston, which is kind of the halfway point between Greenville and Anderson, Fountain Inn, and then back up to Duncan. What that does, Mark, is it puts all of the developed areas of Greenville, Easley, Piedmont, Liberty, Wade Hampton, TR, Simpsonville, Fountain Inn, Five Forks, all of it inside of a loop. What that will also do is pull people away from having to come into downtown Greenville, into Greenville proper, I-85 and 385 to get anywhere. It'll also encourage people to move a little bit further out from Greenville because they will have better access to better rapid transportation around the area. And that means if you live in Williamston, you don't have to come through downtown Greenville. I say downtown, I mean I-85. You don't have to come through Greenville proper if you're on your way to Spartanburg and Charlotte. You take the loop up to Duncan, you get on 85. You go the rest of the way. It links Spartanburg to Greenville. It links Greenville to Anderson with this loop. It takes the pressure off of a lot of infrastructure. It takes the pressure all out of all this rapid growth that's really centralized into Greenville proper.
Diesel, that could happen. And it would really remove a lot of pressure. And a lot of big cities do that loop. And we're not there yet.
Charlotte's got two.
Yeah.
Charlotte's got two.
We're not there yet, but with some growth, I could see that being an idea that clicks, an idea that pops. 71307 on the text line. And again, guys, I know a lot of the local leaders here, and I'm going to send them an email with your idea. If you have the idea that Diesel and I deem to be the best in among those that come in.
Oh, right? If we could fund this thing if we actually started pulling people over and fining them for blowing through red lights, busted headlights, no turn signals, all that kind of stuff. Think how much money local police departments are letting slide by not ticketing people for all this DA stuff they do.
The folks, again, I've moved 18 times. I have never seen a more forgiving police force. And really, just like people who brazenly just go right through red lights because Constantly. They know there's not a cop anywhere to be found.
Sometimes I've seen people do it right in front of cops. They don't care.
And nothing happens.
If you're a police officer in Greenville, can you explain to me why you don't ticket people for these things, for basic traffic violations? Why don't you? You know who we're talking about. You know sometimes I'll drive home when it's starting to get dark, Mark, and I will count half a dozen or more. And I'm going to Malden. Oof. From here to Malden, and I'm counting half a dozen or more people with a busted headlight.
Well, not only that, Diesel, when the light is yellow, turning to orange, turning to red, every single time, living here but never in Houston, You would
Sure.
see somebody and you're thinking to yourself, don't do it, don't do it. Oh, that's right. There's no consequence.
Yeah.
Biggest change, if you asked me after I lived here a week, what's the biggest change here in Houston in 2019, I would have said people get away with murder on the roads here. Like you would get pulled over in 2 seconds in Houston doing the stuff I see here. But let me give you my ideas to improve the upstate. Here you go. Number one, some of you have touched on it. Approve sports projects that are well-founded and well-funded and can help the area branch out. The soccer stadium, I love this idea of an amusement park. A football stadium could be built here, right? Those sorts of ideas that are great for the community, that help not everything just be centered in Greenville, helping Greenville not become a cluster bleep of traffic, right? Approve these ideas, understand how they are for the greater good of our area. Number two, get rid of this stupid and offensive Confederate Museum with all the signs to the Confederate Museum. Guys, look, I understand our nation's history. I took history class. I get it. I understand that the Confederate era was known for many different facets, far more than just those that are offensive. But in today's day and age, it is associated with offensive topics. So it blows my mind that when you're coming into downtown Greenville, you're seeing signs pointing you to the Confederate Museum. It's like a sign letting everybody know that we're offensive here. I just think that's the dumbest thing. Maybe you can't make the Confederate Museum take itself down, but you sure as bleep don't need signs pointing you in the right direction. You know, like literally on the first of never, when my family has come to visit here, they visited 5 times. Have I said, hey guys, you know what we could do today? Haven't seen the Confederate Museum yet. Hey, have you seen the Confederate Museum? The hell do you have signs for that for? Ridiculous. Number 3, Malfunction Junction. Diesel, you on Lawrence Road, you go on I-85 north towards Spartanburg. You get on the interstate. You have exactly 20 yards to get over.
I know exactly where you're talking about.
Before you go right back off the exit, right back onto Lawrence Road. And if people were smart and realized, okay, if I can't get over, I'll just get back off the exit again, it would be no problem. But they don't do that. They merge right into ongoing traffic. You have to merge into ongoing traffic, and these people are going fast. That is the dumbest effing thing I have ever seen in my life, that you give people 20 yards, and that's not the only place it happens.
It's like that directly beneath that bridge as well. There's people getting off of I-85 south to get on Lawrence Road going towards Malden, and they have about 20 feet to get over before cars who are on Lawrence Road need to get on the entrance onto 85. It's like the same thing.
What do you like? Who can get over in that much space? And so people don't accept, okay, I'm taking the L. I couldn't get over. They just get over anyway. And you create accidents, and it's dumb. Number 4, eventually we have to get behind what many sports teams do. One name, one team. We need that for our area. One name, one area. Whether it's the Upstate, whether it's Greenville, whatever it is, we need a name for our area. You know, Nielsen, when they do the market rankings, they give us credit for Greenville, Spartanburg. They throw in Anderson and Pickens County. We are a region, okay, that should go by one name. It just is senseless that we got to change the town names every 2 feet, 200 yards. And I understand the whole area is known as the Upstate, but I want us all living here. Where do you live? I live in the Upstate. I live in Greater Greenville. I live in one of those areas. It's just, it helps the growth of the area. So for me, let's approve common sense sports initiatives like the Malden Soccer Stadium. Let's, by golly, get rid of this Confederate Museum. And first things first, all of the signs pointing to the Confederate Museum. Number 3, fix the malfunction junction. This is a safety hazard that I have to deal with every day. Number 4, one name, one team, one town. Let's make it happen. Let us make it happen. What do you guys got? 71307 is the text line where you guys can get to us. Your best ideas to improve life in the upstate, we'll take them. And we got the top 5 at 5 coming your way next. Here on the most interactive sports talk show anywhere, Offsides, Mark, Ryan, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. What's good, everybody? This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Mark, Ryan, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 p.m. today. Truly do appreciate you making us part of your afternoon. Yeah, so you remember that word that Josh Pate said that I said he says it odd. He says it differently. Because. That's what he says. And I do not know how to say museum. Well, how am I saying this wrong, Diesel? Museum.
Zeum. Like pretend it's Z-E-U-M because it's S-E-U-M and you say Zam.
Museum.
You say museum, like Shazam.
Bam. Museum.
Museum.
There you go. I'm working on it.
It's like a, how some people call a gnat a no-seum.
Yeah.
Think of it that way.
Museum.
A museum.
There we go. I'm working on it. Thanks, Dr. Skinny. I appreciate that. This is Texter says, Mark, in terms of town name, area name, one name for the area. Welcome to Greenberg. Works for me. I've got no disputes for that. That's just part of the ultimate growth of our area. I realize that there's a whole faction of people that don't want anything to change here. But change is inevitable. When you cease being better, you cease being good. There is no staying the same. Change is happening all around you. Nothing ever stays the same.
Mad Craft is in with my idea. He says that should definitely get emailed in. That could essentially cut the traffic problems in half, in all seriousness.
It's just like I have no faith that they'll ever get it done, Diesel, because of the Charlotte project, because of I-85 to Charlotte.
Yeah.
Like you cross over the state line, you have one state that cares, North Carolina. And one state that doesn't, South Carolina.
Yeah.
And that's really, really aggravating, man.
Why is it taking South Carolina so long to fix the road between the state line and the city of Spartanburg?
It makes no damn sense. And so what faith do we have that they would build a loop in anything less than 100 years? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Two texters are upset with my Confederate museum take. I'm working on it. Takes 21 days to create a new habit, folks. Confederate museum is not offensive.
You just said it.
Museum. Confederate museum is not offensive. Just another reason not to listen to the non-sports sports show, as he listens to the non-sports sports show. Said as he is listening live and in real time.
We appreciate your patronage.
Thank you so much. Texter says, why is the museum such a problem? It's just history. To make them remove it is bad on many levels, but namely it's unconstitutional. The other two on your list, I agree with. Well, there were four on my list, JT and Greer. First of all, cities and counties, etc., they eminent domain things all the time. But that's not even what I'm suggesting here. What doesn't make any sense to me is why the city would put up signs. These are not signs by the Confederate Museum. The city is putting up signs advertising where the Confederate Museum is. Hey, 2 miles this way is the Confederate Museum. What? Like, let me tell you guys, okay? Registered independent here, voted Republican, voted democratically. When my family visited the area for the first time, seeing that was the thing that bothered them the most. It's just like what? Okay, if that's here, it's one thing. But why is the city putting up signs to point to the direction of where this offensive place is? There are offensive places everywhere. And finally, if you can't see why that would be offensive, you and I are just not going to get along on that.
It's the same people, Mark, who would get mad and say, why are you pointing people to Unity Park? What do we need Unity for? Why do we need signs for Unity Park? It's the same type of people.
Yeah, I don't get it. Like I don't get it. I don't understand like how you can't see why that would be a problem. Like where I come from, we know what's offensive. We know what isn't offensive. I understand that I'm offending some of you by saying that. Good. Maybe you need to be offended a little bit. Okay? Because it's a bad look. It's a black eye. All right? I didn't say you got to take it down. Okay? I didn't say that. I watched Dukes of Hazzard as a kid. I forget what the orange car was called, Diesel and Dukes of Hazzard.
General Lee.
General Lee. But it had the Confederate flag on it. I had that car as a kid. I understand the history, understand the many different things that flag stands for, not just the offensive ones. But in today's day and age, it's offensive to people. And if you can't understand that, maybe you should brush up on your history knowledge, and maybe you should try a little empathy every once in a while.
There's that old saying, Mark, that those who don't know their history are doomed to repeat it. I think having that museum there is fine, but I agree with you that we don't need multiple signs pointing people towards it. If people want to seek it out, if people want to find it for themselves and go visit and educate themselves on what that time was like in this country, go. That's great. I've considered going to it because I would love to get that history lesson. But that doesn't mean that people who drive here for the first time, which people, literally everyone sees it.
Yep.
Like I would say 70, well, maybe not 70, 50% of the traffic in downtown Greenville enters downtown Greenville right past that museum, right past those signs. Those are people who are going to downtown to go out to eat. Those are people who are going to sporting events at Bon Secours Wellness Arena. Those are people who are looping their way down to the other end of Greenville who want to go to Falls Park. Now, of course, there's people coming in from the Augusta Road side of town. There's people coming in from the Pickens side of town, but at least half of the traffic that goes into downtown Greenville comes in through that area.
You know, my first time I moved here January 2019. Family visited for the first time around my birthday, May of 2019. And at the end of their trip, I said, what did you like? What did you not like about the trip? What did you like? What do you like about where I live? What do you not like? And the like list was so diverse. The food, downtown Greenville, seeing mountains, all the hill terrain, the parks that you guys have, Table Rock State Park. The food scene is incredible. Okay, so like everybody had different things that they loved. What did you not like? First thing on everybody's list. They're advertising a Confederate museum. You're going to downtown, signs pointing to a Confederate museum? What? Hey, we're offensive right down the street here. We're offensive. That's what we do here. Like it's, guys, I don't come from a liberal family. Okay, if you want to call me a bleeding heart liberal, I don't come from a liberal family. It was the same thing everybody was bothered by. Everybody. So, you know, it's clearly not just a me thing, right? 71307 on the text line is where you can get to us. It is time for us to do that jam. We call it the top 5 at 5, the top 5 biggest sports stories of the day, the top 5 topics we're discussing. Ladies and gentlemen of the Upstate OFFSIDES, the top 5 at 5 starts right now.
And now, the top 5 at 5.
And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hit it.
5.
At number 5, today marks 3 years without Furman baseball. And I know what you might be thinking. And you know, it's interesting. We did this segment to start the show today, and at the end of the segment, I said to Diesel, well, I really thought that would get a lot of people going, and it didn't. And that's the problem, right? That's the problem. That's why Furman baseball isn't here anymore. You know, when the area loses a team, I think that is kind of a big deal. And 3 years ago today, Furman lost their baseball team. And that is something that I saw on social media. That is something that a lot of people are still upset about. You know, a lot of you guys know about Stack's Original Restaurant, Michael Stathakis. I can't go into that store, into that restaurant, a single time without having people say to me, Mark Ryan, without having Michael Stathakis say to me, Mark, man, look at all these photos, signed photos, baseball memorabilia here from Furman Baseball. It's a damn shame. There's a Twitter account, Bring Back Furman Baseball. It only has 331 followers. But we're here to get the word out for them. We understand that says 3 years ago today, Furman canceled their baseball program. It was an action that shocked fans and students alike. Help us tell Furman that we want baseball back. Sign the petition. And what I want to do is let you guys know that Furman is not to be blamed for any of that. And I'm not saying this because Furman airs on our station. Furman is not to be blamed for not having baseball, but you and I are. All right? We didn't talk about Furman baseball on this show. Shame on us. We didn't go to Furman baseball games. Shame on us. We didn't realize they were in danger of being cut. Shame on us. Did you financially support Furman baseball? You know, folks, if you look at the financials for different schools, for different colleges, it paints a bleak picture for all non-revenue sports. You know, I'm going to present to you quickly here the revenue stream for LSU athletics, Louisiana State University athletics, for the year 2018. Okay, I've got the data in front of me right here. Football profited $56 million. Men's basketball profited $1.6 million. Baseball profited $569,000. Those are the only sports in the black. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14 sports losing money. When you hear me say that every other athlete of every other sport should walk around campus thanking the football players for their mere existence to get to do their other sports, their tennis and swimming and golf and track and field, that's what I mean. These sports are not revenue generating. So please don't blame Furman for Furman baseball no longer being here. The fault lies with you and I and the community for not supporting Furman baseball while we had it. Next up.
4.
I was watching Denver, LA last night, and Denver goes up 2-0. I predicted Denver to win this series. I predicted Denver to win the West when no one else did. I say that because Phoenix was a favorite to win the West. Golden State was a favorite to win the West. Where are they? Oh, yeah, Lakers beat Golden State, and Denver beat Phoenix. And I was thinking to myself, why am I rooting so hard for Denver, almost like they would be my team? Why is that? And I want to ask you guys that question as well. Like, if it's not Clemson or South Carolina or your favorite team, and you're just watching two teams play, what factors tilt the balance of power in one favor or the other? I was thinking about this last night. Number one, everybody disrespected Denver. That has me pulling forth. Number two, they got likable superstars, Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray, good guys. Number three, Denver's never been to the finals. They've never even made it to the championship series. Why would I want to root for them and against LA? Well, just like it annoyed me when Peyton Manning won his Super Bowl, everyone was like, Peyton Manning won Super Bowl number 2. He sucked when they won their second Super Bowl. He couldn't throw a 15-yard pass anymore because of his neck fusion and all that stuff. He didn't have the fastball anymore.
But would they have won the game with the backup?
No.
There you go.
No. But they didn't. They could have won the Super Bowl diesel with a lot of other starting quarterbacks besides him, and he gets the credit for it. Right?
Well, the Green Bay Packers would have won more playoff games if they had any other starting quarterback, but, well, they had Aaron Rodgers.
The world needs ditch diggers too, Diesel. Oh, there I go again, stealing your lines. There we go. Yep. That's what we do around here.
Absolutely, positively.
That's it. So, guys, my brownies are burnt tying that back into Peyton Manning because if the Lakers win, LeBron's going to get credit for it. And he was awful last night. They've got a great team around him. Anthony Davis and Dennis Schroeder's defense and D'Angelo Russell and Austin Reeves, undrafted, and Lonnie Walker. These guys have been incredible. Rui Hachimura, incredible. If they win, it's going to be anything because of anybody but LeBron, and he's going to get credit for it. So I'm a huge Denver Nuggets fan in this series. You tell me what creates your rooting interest when you're watching a game that your team is not playing in. Next up.
3.
Everybody wants to be a U. Here's what I mean by that. Not the U as in Miami. Everybody wants to be a DBU, a DLU, a wide receiver U. Want to know what gets you there? Being Pro Football Focus's highest rated school at a position in the entire National Football League. Yeah, That's Clemson right now on the defensive line.
You know, I used to hear East Carolina referred to as ODU, not Old Dominion, but Overdose University.
Oh, no. That's
It's a hell of a party school.
That's Angela's alma mater.
Really?
Oh,
Really?
yeah.
You know, they were listed as the #1 party school in the country
Yeah.
for several years in a row
Yeah.
in Playboy magazine. And then eventually Playboy kept doing the list, but they took East Carolina off the list and put them in a class of their own
Oh,
because it's that elite of a party school.
I've shown Angela those lists, Diesel, and I've said, how did you end up as sweet as you are going there? You know? Like it's like party central, man.
There's nothing to do out there but
Hangover
get
central out
hammered.
there. So Clemson is DLU, right? Officially. Because if you look at Pro Football Focus's school rankings by position, no school has better defensive line players in the National Football League right now than Clemson does. So Clemson is DLU. Learn to love it. Christian Wilkins, Dexter Lawrence, DJ Reader, Shaq Lawson, Carlos Watkins, Grady Jarrett, Brian Brazier, Miles Murphy, to name a few of the stalwarts on Clemson's defensive line that are now starring in the National Football League. They are officially DLU. And when you heard last week Clemson's new 5-star Heaven Brown Schuler join the show, we asked him, what did their reputation as DLU do for you? What do you say, Diesel? It was everything.
Yeah, it was everything. He listed off all those names that you just said. This guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy. They have such a history here. That's where I wanted to be.
There you go. Next up,
2,
we are soliciting your ideas to improve the Upstate. The best idea that comes in as voted on by Diesel and I will submit to City Council leaders by email. I know a lot of these folks. Thus far, people have said repave the roads. Other folks have said on the YouTube line as well that, look, we really need to approve some of these sports projects. Diesel has an idea for a loop, an interstate loop around the Upstate that can more quickly take you from place to place to place.
It's a pain in the ass getting anywhere in this town. If I'm in Malden and I want to go to Travelers Rest, I got to take 385 into downtown, and then I got to take Stone Avenue to another road, and then I got to go out to another road, and then I got to go 20 miles that way, and then I got to take another road up into TR. It's a pain in the ass to get anywhere, and you have to take busy, developed city streets to get you to a lot of the places you want to go in the Upstate. It takes almost an hour to go 15 miles from one town to another town just on opposite sides of downtown Greenville. It sucks.
Diesel, you won't hear me make that complaint, and I don't want to be this guy, but this area, every city I classify as easy and hard. Everything here is so easy. I would hate to see what you think living in Houston, living in Tampa, living in Atlanta. Maybe that's why you don't live there, right? This area is still very easy, but it's getting a bit more difficult.
So that's why you get a hold of it before it gets to that point.
My dad left a couple weeks ago, said, boy, Mark, every time I'm here, there's more people than there were the last time.
What are the stats? 35,000 people a year move to the Upstate?
Yep.
Stephen Webb agrees with my idea for a loop. He says
How
everything's
many-
a pain in the ass too.
Yeah. How many people fit in Appalachian State's football stadium, Jason? What's the capacity of that?
Largest crowd ever was somewhere around 40,000.
So essentially, ladies and gentlemen, the Upstate grows by an Appalachian State filled stadium every single year. Think about that for a minute. A filled stadium of Appalachian State crazies comes to the Upstate every year. That's a big deal, man.
That's a hell of a thought.
Yeah.
Right there.
So what is your idea to improve the Upstate? We'll take your calls. We'll take your thoughts. 844-326-3663, 71307 on the text line. My ideas: approve common sense sports initiatives, the soccer stadium in Malden. Get rid of all the signs to the Confederate Museum. Makes us look bad.
Museum. We'll get you there.
Malfunction Junction, this area where you get onto the interstate and they give you 20 yards to get over before your on-ramp ends. And then one name, one town. It's time that we all be known by one name. Let's say goodbye to the 200 different town names in the area. What do you say? Those are my ideas. What say you? And finally,
1.
we had him on the show earlier this week, Landon Powell, the head coach of North Greenville University. And he shared with us he loves this team, loves the character of this team. My friends, last night in their own regional that they are hosting, they trailed 5-3. Bottom of the ninth against Georgia Southwestern. Not in an elimination game, but in a game, if they lost, it would put their backs against the proverbial wall. Our very own Tim Holcomb, who is the producer of Terra Servatius on WORD, was on the call last night when this happened at North Greenville.
Game now 3 hours old.
Appreciate everyone staying up with us here tonight. Almost 800 viewers.
That one's hit out to right field. That ball's got a chance. That ball's at the wall. That ball is gone. Oh, my goodness. John Michael Farrell with the walk-off 3-run homer. Are you kidding me? A walk-off homer. One for the record books, too. He's now alone at the top of the home run rankings. It's a Division II baseball, and what a way to do it in a heartbreaking fashion for the Hurricanes. But, oh, my goodness, are you kidding me?
Tim's got a skill for that.
He does, man. Tim Holcomb.
He's got a skill for that.
I was listening to that, Diesel, and I was like, that's Tim.
How many times do we hear guys who are bad at this?
Oh, yeah.
And you can hear all the, and sometimes it's the main play-by-play guy. A lot of times it's his second chair. It's his color commentary. When something crazy like that happens, play-by-play is trying to describe what happens, and his color commentary is just like, whoa, whoa, oh my God, whoa. Like, you can't talk over the guy like that.
Tim is outstanding.
Yeah.
Tim Holcomb, great job. He texted me with that. He's like, Mark, here it is for your use. If you want it today, man, heck of a call, heck of a job. By the way, that home run broke the all-time D2 record for most home runs. The guy's name, Diesel, is John Michael Faile, Faile. Now, I empathize, commiserate with him because my real last name is one that got me made fun of growing up. And how awesome is it to squash anything that anyone can say about your last name? I am the all-time D2 home run king. How you like me now?
I put an E on the end of it, pronounce it Dierte. It's actually pretty cool.
There you go. And those are today's top 5 at 5. Now it's your chance to chime in. You know how to do it. 844-326-3663. The text line is there for you at 71307. Start your text with the word fan, and away you go. You can get to us on Facebook, on Twitter, and on YouTube. All three, the same address, at the Fan Upstate. And finally, email. You guys can all email the show. Mark Ryan, that is M-A-R-C Ryan, at thefanupstate.com. All the different ways you can get in touch with us here on the most interactive sports radio show anywhere. Stephen Webb says, can we just all agree to call the Upstate Sugar Tits?
Yeah.
Can we all agree?
Then you'd be stealing my nickname from my wife.
You do have a pet name for her. I learned this. Here we go. Stephen Webb remembers. He remembers that I shared with you one time that in Italian, my name, my real last name means little grapes, which doesn't make me insecure at all, honestly. Doesn't make me insecure.
He goes, man, I got great big grapes.
Yeah, very, very big.
I don't care what my name says.
Very massive, very massive. The name means little grapes.
Big grapes? No, I've never had little grapes. Never once in my life. No little grapes. I don't hold small things in my hands, only big things. Okay? Okay.
Remember when he was going at Marco Rubio and he was like, he knocked my hands. If my hands are small, something else be small.
I don't care what Meatball Ron has to say.
I assure you there's no problem there.
Wrong.
All right, coming up next on the show, a Major League Baseball player joined the show this week, had a crazy idea for the Atlanta Braves. If you missed it, we'll bring you into what he possibly could have meant. That's next here on the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Mark Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate.
All right, YouTube stream. Thank you again for crowding around here and listening to our little bleep show. Stephen Webb says, I have to buy you a beer one day. Well, why not this week, Stephen Webb? I'm on vacation. Shoot me a DM. Diesel on Radio, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pornhub, all of them. All of them at Diesel on Radio. Find me across any of those platforms. Send me a DM. We'll grab a beer this week. I'm not doing anything. But yes, thank you for joining the stream today. If you haven't yet, click that subscribe button. We grew by 4 subscribers yesterday, and we haven't grown by a single one today. So we need one of you who's not yet subscribed to go click that little red subscribe button. Just so you know, like everybody knows that you just got to tickle that little button. Just like you just need to tickle it.
We'll see you guys later.
Yeah.
Have a great weekend.